You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
This week's Law & Order Marathon winner is Gina Comerci of Shipack, Pennsylvania. Gina will get a marathon decal showing she watched 26.2 hours of her favorite crime show. To be next week's winner, sign up at lawandorderpodcast.com.
I'm Kevin Flynn with Rebecca Lavoie and Chase Williamson, and these are their stories.
You think you know who did it, but you don't know who did it. Law and order, law and order, law and order. It's no ordinary police procedural, baby. It's the FNOG of police procedurals, baby. Law and order, law and order, law and order, law and order. These are their stories, these are their stories.
Welcome to These Are Their Stories, the podcast about network TV's most enduring crime franchise and the real-life cases that inspired their shows. I'm Kevin Flynn. Each podcast will break down an episode from either Criminal Intent SVU or Original Recipe. And today, we're looking at SVU Season 12, Episode 1, Locum.
I can't go through this again.
Again? Mackenzie's gone missing before?
Our other daughter, Ella, was abducted 10 years ago. She's still out there. She's still out there.
Joining me to do just that is true crime author and host of Crime Writers On and Slate's Mom and Dad Are Fighting podcasts, Rebecca Lavoie. Hello, Rebecca.
Are you 100% sure it's Rebecca Lavoie that you're co-podcasting with tonight?
I don't know. You look very much like your sister. And rounding out our panel is special guest, actor and producer Chase Williamson. Hello, Chase.
Hello, Kevin and Rebecca. My God, it's a pleasure.
The pleasure is all ours.
You were the star of the movie John Dies at the End. I want to know, how come you didn't want to play John?
I actually did.
Want to?
but they made me they made me be the lead.
They didn't think you could pull off a death scene?
Yeah, I don't know. He was like the goofy one, and I was like the really serious one, and I was like, obviously I'm going to play the goofy one, and then no. They thought that I looked upset enough to play the sad guy.
Now, are you a Law & Order weekend warrior, or do you go all the way back to primetime viewing?
Way back. I mean, I think I got into it probably mid-SVU, so probably like season 6 or something. And went back and binged all of it.
It's my kind of guy.
SVU is my main jam, and it took up a lot of my life for a long time. And then I kind of like fell off it for a while. But I feel like SVU was like what got me into true crime, like got me started like watching Dateline and all the true crime stuff.
Oh, you do know that SVU is fake, right?
What? No, it's a documentary.
No,
don't tell them about wrestling.
As an actor, do you have friends who've been on SVU?
Yes, tons.
Really?
Yeah.
as corpses or
as like rape victims and stuff.
Oh wow.
Oh,
yeah.
And you don't live in New York, so you haven't been on SVU, right?
No, I think I gone out. I've gone out for like a Law and Order show. I feel like they had a Los Angeles one for a minute.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah. I went out for that once, but it was a no-go. I think I was just auditioning to like get mugged for like a minute or something. And then
you didn't look sad enough for that one.
No, the casting director was like, "Take your sweatshirt off and like spin around." And I was like, "Wow." I'm like, "All right, I've seen enough." I was like, "Wow." I feel like I got it, but I didn't.
Now, Chase, of all the franchises, which two cops are your favorite detective team?
Favorite Law and Order detective team?
Benson and Stabler.
Classic.
Classic pick.
Without question. Yeah.
What's so great about them?
I love Chris Maloney deeply in everything everything that he does. Wet Hot American Summer is one of my favorite movies of all time. And, Oz is a really great show, and I just love him, and I love Mariska Hargitay also. And I just think, I have so much respect for her doing a show for 19 seasons or whatever. And still bringing it every time. And like her performance is so amazing because just like the way she does her job with adults versus children, and in this episode, it's like a great example of it, is so spot on, I feel like, and just like subtly specific in terms of like how she's doing her job as a detective and questioning people. She just seems really good at her job.
Yeah. After 19 years, you'd hope so, right?
Yeah, I mean, she's really figured it out.
And who's your favorite prosecutorial team?
Favorite Law and Order District Attorney Prosecutorial Team.
Oh, God, I don't even know. I don't even know any of their names, really.
No, blonde.
Yeah, the blonde one. Love her.
All right, now let's look at the first half of this episode, SVU, Season 12, Episode 1, Locum. Overprotective mommy can only enjoy her bath if she can still hear Mackenzie practicing the piano. But she gets locked in the bathroom and fears a kidnapper has taken her daughter. Why would she assume such a thing?
A good question.
Seems their daughter, Ella, had been kidnapped years earlier. So now we know why they've got this kid on serious lockdown.
What about her school?
I homeschool her.
So she never leaves your sight?
No, never.
Maybe she needed a little space.
Mackenzie is 10. She doesn't need space. She needs someone to watch her and protect her, which I've given up my life to do.
What about her computer? Does she do her schoolwork on it?
Yes, but we don't let her on it without someone monitoring her.
Retrieving a deleted internet chat, they know Mackenzie left on her own to meet someone at Grand Central Station. They find the girl safe and sound, chatting with a creepy man. And so ends another 6-minute episode of Law & Order Special Victims Unit. Benson grills Eric Weber, a guy who claims to be an anti-pedophile crusader. He's very anxious to get home because he has to type 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and 42 in his computer every 108 minutes.
Nice.
Now, detectives find out that the person IMing Mackenzie wasn't Eric, but her 10-year-old foster brother that she misses seeing. After getting a disappointed stare from Cragen, Mackenzie gives a half-hearted apology like the little bitch she is. The relieved parents take her home, but the girl leaves behind a crayon-written note saying her adopted family hurts her and asks Olivia to rescue her. So, when the elite squad of detectives thinks that you might be going a little overboard protecting your special victim, you might want to lighten up.
You know, I wouldn't lighten up, though, if I were this elite squad of detectives, only because, and I'm just going to say it, this is the greatest episode of SVU of all time.
This is your favorite one.
It's my all-time favorite episode. It is the greatest episode, and that over-the-top Joan Cusack bathtub scene
Oh, my God.
sets it up, like, unbelievably. And
Who is out there? If you touch my baby, I'll kill you!
And then she's hanging out the window and throwing things out the window.
I will say, Chase, when she jumped out of the tub, I thought I was going to see nip. I'm sorry, my eye went right there. There was an awful lot of underboob for someone jumping out of the tub with a face cloth. I'm just saying.
That's what we call a raw and brave performance. Totally naked, sopping wet, screaming for your daughter from the other side of a door.
Throwing an ashtray out of the bathroom window.
Whatever it was.
Nearly hit a guy with his earbuds listening to a podcast called Crime Writers On.
That's right. That was definitely what he was listening to.
I would, if I were in New York walking down the street and someone threw an ashtray from a window, I don't think I would stop and like take my earbuds out and see what they. I think I would.
Yeah,
I would just assume that they were insane or there was some sort of domestic dispute going on.
Yeah, you're like, hey, it's Thursday.
Yeah.
So.
You'd be like,
All right, but these parents are certainly, really wound up tight. They already have, Rebecca, printouts of local sex offenders that they can offer into evidence.
Don't you? Don't you just keep a folder, like in your random drawer where you put your keys, like when you come home from work? In that drawer, don't you also have a folder of every registered sex offender in your neighborhood?
No. My mom was not like that. Chase, your mom was not like that.
not to my knowledge.
So this is like the point in the show where I do a thing that I know you find annoying, but it really is really like dominant for me in the first half of the show.
Okay.
The apartment that this family lives in.
Yeah.
There are like 20 different styles of decor in this apartment, right?
Oh, do tell.
So we first see her in a bathroom, which is straight up like Chip and Joanna shiplap and a rustic door. Then we go into the living room, which has concrete floors and big modern windows, and randomly an adobe fireplace, which is very confusing. And then in this scene later, when the cops come, we're in Mackenzie's room, which looks like a pretty princess carpeted like room from like a colonial in Connecticut. It's very disorienting for me.
That's so true.
Hey, that's great. Okay, so a note to viewers. They're looking for a little girl in Grand Central Station with 4 cops. Right? They're like, They come to the balcony. It's like, well, we better start searching now.
Isn't it wonderful?
She's not getting any less lost.
Isn't it great, though, how, like, dispassionate and uncaring all those Grand Central Station employees are about the search?
Chase, my favorite part is Finn goes to tell somebody, you got to shut down all the trains. He's like,
yeah, that's not going to happen.
That ain't going to happen.
Well, I love that the reason why she was able to escape and make it to Grand Central Station so quickly is because her dad went behind Joan Cusack's back and bought her some Heelys, which are those shoes with little wheels on the heel. And she just goes skating down the street.
We don't need a train. I have my Heelys.
Yeah. I should have never bought her those Heelys. And he's right. No good can come from that. You know, if you don't want her to be skating around, like have any freedom, why would you buy her shoes that are designed to sort of like let her get away from whatever she wants to in a quick amount of time?
You sure thing gonna get her kidnapped again with them Heelys?
Yeah,
you're asking for trouble.
You're asking for trouble. Yes, absolutely.
She planned it too. She asked for the Heelys because she knew that was the only way she'd be able to get away in time. She's smart. She may have, like, intense behavioral issues, and I happen to be on the side of, like, Joan Cusack with, like, that little girl. Like, when they find her in Grand Central Station, the cops are like, so, like, what can you tell us about why all of this is happening? And the little girl's like,
Bite me.
Bite me. And I was like, Jesus. And then Joan Cusack is like, Mackenzie. But, like, if my kids talk to a cop like that, I would be like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Like, Joan Cusack seemed very understanding of her, like, behavioral issues as a foster kid.
I think I would be like, are you sure you want her back?
Yeah, I was like, ugh.
Okay, a special announcement.
It's our very special guest star,
Joan Cusack.
Yes.
Yay!
She's playing Pamela Burton, and she received an Oscar nomination for Working Girl.
God, why won't anyone believe me? She's not dead. The man with the camera took her, and the police won't tell me who he is because they think I'm gonna...
And she has been in 10 movies with her brother, John Cusack.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do we think of her performance in this episode? Chase, let's start with you.
I think it's genius. I think it's brilliant. I love Joan Cusack. I think her performance in Addams Family Values is one of the greatest of all time. And I think
better than Working Girl.
Yes. Oh, way better. Repeat viewing material, definitely. But I feel like her performance here is just like very unhinged, and she really goes for it, and she really brings it. And I think that the guy who plays her husband is just like also brilliant because he like is so grounding, and she's so like unhinged and over the top, and like his presence is so grounded and like real seeming that it sells that. It just like makes you not immediately assume that the parents are crazy.
Just one of them is crazy.
Yeah, well, just the fact that the dad seems so reasonable and he's like on the wife's side makes it seem like, oh, maybe she is just like a traumatized woman and she's just like turned up to a 10 because
12.
Yeah, maybe she has a point. But you know, I think Joan really brought it, and she won an Emmy for this, right? I'm just assuming.
There's Peabody Award.
Okay.
I like the moment in the episode where Joan was like a little bit racist, just like assuming that the brown-skinned guy and the little girl wearing the hijab, like it must have been. It was like the Not Without My Daughter viewer, like decided that like that had to be Mackenzie.
Yeah. Still like, Joan, you know your daughter's not Muslim, right? Tell by the way she walks.
Exactly.
That must be her.
Exactly.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall with like her preparing for the role. Like did she practice like how she was gonna do it before she got to set? Or like did she go to set and like had like a really subtle, nuanced performance and the director was like, okay, do that again, but like really turn it up to like a 12.
Yeah.
Did she workshop it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because like I feel like she kind of is in control of the tone of the episode, and I feel like, you know, what she's bringing is like her sort of interpretation of the tone of SVU, And that's kind of what I love about it, is that she knows what show she's on. And she's just really going for it, you know?
Now, we have a Hey, It's That Guy.
Hey, it's that guy.
Can you name the actor who plays Eric Weber?
I'm picturing Jeremy Sisto when I picture him, but I know that's not who it was.
No. Rebecca, do you know?
That's the dude who's Desmond from Lost, right?
Yeah, what's his name?
Henry something.
Henry Ian Cusack.
Yeah, Cusack.
My sister was raped, and it destroyed her. When I was 16, she killed herself. So what you are accusing me of, I would never.
Yeah, Cusack. I remember seeing that in the credits and being like, oh, that's almost Cusack, but it's not.
That's right, it's almost. Well, of course, yeah, we know him as Desmond from Lost, the guy down in the hatch, hitting all the numbers on that computer.
Yep.
He was also in he's also in the 100. And here's a fun fact: he was born in Peru to Peruvian and Scottish parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good mix.
Interesting combination.
Is that fun? I don't know if that's fun. It sounds like a
it's
fact.
It's a fact. All right.
Scottish and Peruvian?
Yeah.
Huh. Be a weird combo of accents. I would love to hear that.
That's it. So, Rebecca, we do see this character, Eric Weber, again in actually the next episode.
Yes, and there's some really fun foreshadowing of the Eric Weber that we will come to know. I mean, if you're like me and Chase and you, because you live with me and I watch SVU all the time, all day on Sunday, you know that there is another episode in which he appears where it turns out he's not the good guy he appears to be, even though in this episode he really doesn't appear to be a good guy at all. There's a lot of good foreshadowing.
He asks out Benson
immediately.
That's pretty ballsy.
She's like, all right, I guess you're cleared, even though I was sure you were a pedophile. And he's like, cool, do you want to maybe, I don't know, grab dinner on Friday? And then he like really pushes it.
Yeah.
I hope you don't find out I'm a pedophile for other kids when I show you my giant computer system.
That's right.
Chase, you've seen the follow-up episode, right, where we see him again?
Oh, yeah. I knew he was coming back.
Yeah, they go to his apartment, and he's got like this giant NASA mission control computer system.
Right.
Which I keep thinking back when he was on Lost, he had a Tandy.
Right.
You know, and pressing those buttons, it's like, no, man, this is how you really do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is this wonderful scene where he unravels with Benson and tries to explain that he's not a pedophile. And he's like, my sister was raped. At which point I yelled out, by you! because that is what we find out in the next episode. The rape he committed.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
He's using as his like defense against being a perv. It's incredible.
But that's not something you say on the first date.
No.
That's more like a third date disclosure.
It is. Yeah.
Rebecca, you think Mackenzie is a badass, huh?
I fucking love this kid. I love everything about her.
Yeah.
I love her sassy little pug nose. I love how she like.
It's not a pug nose anymore, but we'll get to that.
I love how she like when she wants to like make a point, she like gets all screwed up in the face. I love her line delivery. I love her shiny hair.
Come on, he's really nice.
How many times have I told you not to talk to strange men? You know what they can do to you, sweetie.
He didn't do any sex thing.
Did he touch you?
No.
Are you sure?
Stop.
What?
I love everything about this child actress. I really do. Because
Her shiny hair again. It's
listen. These things are important to me.
Okay.
There are a lot of terrible child actors on this show.
Mm-hmm.
This is not one of them. I think this was a solid child actor performance.
That's Bailey Madison, man. That's a seasoned child actress. She's in a ton of stuff.
Bailey Madison.
She's in that movie.
She makes a hair color.
You remember that movie with Tobey Maguire and Jake Gyllenhaal where they played brothers? I believe it's called Brothers.
Terabithia?
No, it's called Brothers.
Oh, right.
She was in that. She's also in Bridge to Terabithia. She's also in this movie that Guillermo del Toro produced called Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which was a remake of this TV movie from the 70s or something.
I remember the TV movie. Yeah, I don't remember the Guillermo del Toro version.
I feel like Mackenzie just like has an attitude problem for sure. And and I feel like she could have just gone about this whole thing in a much different way. And I feel like she seems like very mature and adult, but also so petulant that the two like don't really jive with each other.
She's a product of the system, though, Chase. Come on,
You're right,
she's a
you're
product
right.
of the system.
And I'm a very judgmental person, especially when it comes to children. That's why I love, like, MasterChef Junior, because I love to watch children be judged for skills that they shouldn't have.
And crushed at age 9.
Like, this result is frozen!
All right, now let's take a look at the second half of this episode.
Can't wait.
After getting Mackenzie's note, Liv and a social worker pay a visit to the Burtons' home. Mackenzie says the hole in her arm is from a microchip. And sure enough, they put a fucking microchip in her.
Literally.
The girl says her adopted parents are trying to turn her into their missing abducted daughter, Ella.
They make me wear her clothes. They cut my hair like her.
This is Ella?
This is the real me.
They dye your hair?
They made me have an operation.
They gave you a nose job?
Stabler looks into Ella's disappearance and learns the state police suspected the Burtons killed her on a camping trip. Pamela Burton insists a photographer and a redheaded girl lured Ella away. They track down the photographer, who just happens to have a picture he took that day of a redheaded girl. They run the photo through some bullshit facial recognition machine. And in 30 seconds, they know the girl had done child porn, grew up, and was right now jerking off some guy at the Happy Fun Time massage parlor. The redhead admits she lured Ella away for her father, who wanted her for his wife, then seemingly beat Ella to death. Stabler and Benson go to the guy's farm to arrest him. They're shocked to find Ella living in squalor, but otherwise okay. Benson reunites Ella with her tearful parents. Then the detective sees Mackenzie, who gives her a look as if to say, "You dumb bitch, this is literally the worst thing you could have done to me." So I don't know if this episode has so many twists as it seems to just sort of lunge from one inquiry to a completely new one. Is this twisty, Chase, or is it just sort of ADD?
I thought it was twisty, it was turny, it was absolutely riveting storytelling. It was everything I want, you know? It was like Joan Cusack redemption. It was just like a lot of elements that I want in all of SVU episodes, like all rolled into one. And I was genuinely interested to know what was going to happen, and I wouldn't have been able to predict that that's where it was going to go. And for that, I give it 5 stars.
Yeah, that is why and it's not just my favorite SVU episode. It's also, I think this one is like peak SVU. Because it does everything. It does everything. If you think about that interrogation scene with the parents.
Pamela is not a child killer. You have to understand how much she changed when she lost Ella. How much we both changed.
It was a super intense, like, high-level interrogation scene. Joan was totally unhinged. She's like, I cry every single day.
Killing it.
Meanwhile, they're accusing her of murder. Like, it's just, they crush it. Every single episode, every single, like, element of this just gets crushed. There's the whole microchip thing, which is a callback to a previous RFID microchip episode, which we have discussed on this podcast. And when Ella mentions it, I just want to see Olivia Benson like, you should know that's a thing because Danny Tanner also did that to his wife. That's right. It's great. I love everything about it. It's not a mess. It is perfect.
Do you think the parents even realize that they're turning Mackenzie into Ella?
Well,
Yes.
that's another thing I liked about the episode that, like, makes it... Like, there are certain things about it that ground it and make it not as crazy as it could be, like...
Dyeing her hair? Making her wear Ella's clothes?
They happen to fit. You think it's abusive to have her wear perfectly good hand-me-down?
I believed their reasoning. Like, whenever the...
No, you didn't.
I kind of...
you didn't.
I believed that they believed their reasoning, I guess I should say.
Yeah, that's the question.
Like,
I call bullshit on that, and here's why. You live in California. You work in Hollywood. You and I both know, Chase, that deviated septum is a bullshit excuse for someone to get a nose job.
That's true. The nose job...
That is not a thing.
The nose job thing was where I was like, oh, no, they're lying to themselves. But they had clearly convinced themselves that they were doing the right thing. And when they talk about the microchip, she's like, what are you guys talking about? She asked us to do this. And Mackenzie does not deny that. And both parents are like, no, she literally was like, can we do this? I would like to have a microchip in me.
Yeah, and but there's one other thing. I mean, let's be real. As long as we're being mean to kids.
Yeah.
We do see that before picture of Mackenzie, and I think we can all agree that those horrible things they did to her were a little bit of an improvement.
They were for the best. It was all for the best. They took her like strawberry blonde, like Rachel Dolezal wig away, and like put a headband on her, and gave her some nice clothes.
This is apparently the kind of photographer who makes prints of all of his random shots and keep them in chronologically arranged albums.
That's right. I remember that day, he says.
Oh, yeah. I have it right here in this Target photo studio that I'm currently shooting in.
That was during my nature period. I was going to be the next Ansel Adams.
It was in May. No, I got it. I know the exact day.
Yeah. I remember that because he remembers every day that he took photos.
Well, he'd been questioned about this 10 years ago, so it's fresh in his mind.
Right. And he was like, oh, they didn't ask me about that, so I never showed them.
I've just been waiting to show this to somebody.
So I've had it here with a little one of those like Post-it like stickies on it, just in case you guys ever came back to ask me this exact question.
I love when Ice-T and what's his name, the other guy?
Munch.
I like when they show up to the photo studio and they're like very rude to the photographer. He's like in the middle of a session. He's like,
come on, cutie pie. Let me see that $1 million smile. Let me see it once.
Take 10 folks while Mickey finds a backdrop that's not so cheesy.
Hey, why don't you guys get out of here so we can find a better backdrop? And then the photographer's like, oh God, what do you guys want? Am I in trouble? And they're like, no, we actually just need your help. So like, why would they show up and be so aggressive and mean when they just need his cooperation? They need him to help.
I'm so motivated to help you now.
Yeah.
I'm going to point out that they found that redheaded girl faster than they found Mackenzie in Grand Central Station.
And I will say, that girl looked nothing like the picture of her that the photographer gave them.
Well, Chase, she had some rough times.
Oh, she did? So the facial recognition system, that's not a real thing.
Well, I mean, Facebook does it, but it doesn't. Apparently, Facebook doesn't go through all the child porn. I don't know. I have to talk to Mr. Zuckerberg.
Yeah,
but I just assume that SVU has a team of like real law enforcement consultants that make sure everything they do is completely accurate. So anytime they have some sort of piece of technology that seems like very far-fetched, I just assume it's real.
So they go to the technical advisor and they say, hey, we have to somehow get to this girl in about 45 seconds.
Right.
So we're going to run it through the computer. And like, all right, whatever, you're paying me either way.
They also go to technical advisor and say, we have the crayon note that everyone has touched. But for demonstration purposes in the squad room, we need to flick it up and put it on a giant-ass PowerPoint
They scanned it, yes.
They scanned it on a table, because you also did the table.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So when they do like run it through a computer, do you recognize that it goes? It's like, what computer does that?
It's very high tech.
Yeah,
very high tech.
And it goes through 1 billion faces in about 30 seconds, and I don't know what computer from 2006 could have done that.
Right.
Or 2000, whatever.
Yep. No, you're right. It's total bullshit. I call bullshit. It's still peak SVU. I defend it. I can defend it. I can defend anything about this episode.
It's perfect.
Now, Stabler and Benson go out to this farm to get the guy who kidnapped Ella, and they run across Ella. But from the looks of her, she attempts to hide behind a very small tree. You see her. It's apparent that she hasn't been playing hide and seek in captivity.
Right.
She's lost all sense, all perspective.
Both if I had my face,
of
they
the
can't
world
see me.
and of size.
She thinks it's like Jurassic Park, where she's just very still. They won't be able to
the
see
velociraptors will go by. Now, here's some food for thought, though. Both Ella and Mackenzie, you could say, are both growing up in captivity of an adult's making.
I think it's pretty different.
No, right. I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing, but I am saying symbolically, Chase, do you agree that they both have a kind of captivity? There's another life that they want to lead, and they don't have the agency to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ella and Mackenzie have a lot more in common than Mackenzie would be willing to admit. And I think...
You mean more so than the hand-me-downs?
Yeah. And I think maybe Mackenzie should have just given Ella a chance when she got back instead of immediately assuming it was going to make her situation worse.
Yes. Look, I know you play the piano better.
I know you're going to take away this doll that actually looks like you.
She's going to take all of her hand-me-downs back.
And we know that you know that it's a D and not a D flat.
But she kept saying you have to hit the A.
Yeah.
Hit the A.
Oh, yeah, she was playing Fur Elise, and Joan Cusack was like, "You sound like a rock star, Mackenzie." Like, what kind of rock star plays Fur Elise? The knowing nod meant two things. It meant like the writers were like, "Oh, we forgot about Mackenzie," and then they were like, "Yes, exactly. That's how we're gonna end it. Like that'll be really powerful if we just like end on her." And Benson's like, "Oh shit, I forgot about you."
He's like, "Don't give her any lines. It's better if she just nods.
Yeah,
it means more and it's faster."
Oh, we totally forgot about that little girl. Use it.
To me, it meant
but
like,
also,
they returned Ella, and Mackenzie was like, Olivia Benson nods at her, and she's like, "Your life is shit now," and Ella's like, "Yeah, my life is." Mackenzie's like, "Yeah, my life is shit now," and that's like that knowing nod, right?
Thanks for nothing, you CUNT.
Especially in the first time that Benson really like confronts them and is just like, "What you're doing is crazy," and they're like, "Get out of our apartment." I thought that Benson, I would have been concerned that Mackenzie was going to become violent toward her adoptive parents if she was continuing to like live such a miserable life. I felt like Benson was thinking like, well, if you're not going to listen to me, you're going to suffer the consequences, and you may end up getting murdered by this little girl that you are like forcing to dress up like a doll.
All right, let's take a look at the real-life story that inspired this episode.
Can't wait.
It's time for Ripped.
No.
Yes, Ripped from the headlines.
You think you know who did it. You think you know who did it. But you don't know who did it. You don't know who did it. Ripped from the headlines.
The inspiration for this episode is the abduction of Jaycee Dugard. In 1991, the 11-year-old was snatched. The kidnappers were Philip Garrido and his wife Nancy. The Garridos kept the little girl in a soundproof shed in their backyard. Jaycee Dugard wouldn't go home for 18 years. Garrido was a self-styled religious figure. He was also a convicted sex offender. During her captivity, Jaycee gave birth to 2 daughters, fathered by Garrido. He insisted the children be told Nancy was their mother and Jaycee was their older sister. The 3 prisoners lived in sheds and tents surrounded by tall trees and a 6-foot fence. In 2009, Garrido went to the San Francisco FBI and told them his method for using religion and psychic ability to control sexual offences. He was later seen with the 2 children, who by then were teenagers. Summoned by authorities, Garrido reported to his parole office with his wife and a woman named Alyssa. When questioned further, Alyssa admitted she was Jaycee Dugard. Jaycee and her daughters were reunited with their family. Philip Garrido was convicted to 431 years in prison.
I've got a real question for you.
Yeah.
Cy Frater, our wonderful British voiceover guy.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it works is like you just like send him what you read and he reads it for you.
Yeah.
Who the fuck does he think we are? Like sending him these stories that he has to read. Every time I hear something, it's like this poor guy.
Cy's a good sport. Jaycee Dugard.
Also, that is this episode was
Philip
nothing
Garrido.
like that story. I mean, they just like
Yeah,
that story
seems like a
happened.
Think of the very, very end.
They just shoehorned it in at the end.
Yeah, that's not what the episode's about. It's about Mackenzie and her wheelies and her replacing the daughter. We don't get to know Ella. We don't.
No, that's true. But I will say, you have to think that the structure of the show is that this girl has been kidnapped and is away all these years and then comes back. And in the end, as you saw, when they go to the backyard of the farm, there's all these sheds, and it's obvious that someone's been living out in the back and hiding behind very thin trees.
Yes, and her teeth are way too good to be a captivity for that.
And she's dressed like a colonial woman.
Yes.
And then when they bring her back she's reunited with Joan Cusack and her dad at their like apartment in Manhattan instead of the police station. And she's still wearing like her colonial garb. when they see her for the first time.
Okay, now in real life, it wasn't his daughter, but Garrido used his wife to scout for Jaycee and help win her compliance while in captivity. Do you guys buy Nancy Garrido's claim that she did it just to appease her husband?
Yes.
He had
Really?
power over her.
100%.
Yeah?
100%.
Chase
She's a
doesn't,
victim.
sounds like.
Listen, we wrote a book about this. What are you talking about?
All right, well, okay. I defer to you.
We wrote a book in which a young girl who was in a horribly abusive relationship lured another young girl to their apartment who was then murdered by the abusive boyfriend. And I think in that book, Kevin, if I remember correctly, we kind of conclude that she was a victim of abuse herself, even though she was complicit in the crime. Yes or no, Kevin?
Well, I thought the book I wrote was full of bullshit. So, like, when she was discovered, Jaycee at first stuck to the story that she was Alyssa, right? She didn't tell police right away that, yeah, that's who she was. This is very much like the Elizabeth Smart.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people say, oh, yeah, I would immediately tell the cop who I really was.
Those people can take a leap.
But I think we demonstrated now that that's really not the way that people who have been in this long-time captivity, whether you want to call it Stockholm Syndrome, Chase,
fear.
Or not fear, right? No, today's not the day I'm going home. This is gonna be. I'm just going to get beat for this. If I don't play along. Chase, what do you think about that? Are you surprised that she didn't immediately jump up and say, "I'm Jaycee Dugard"?
No, I buy that. I mean, I can't imagine what kind of psychological shit she was going. I mean, yeah, I can't judge any sort of decision that anyone would make in that situation. And I think, as we know, like, people do weird shit all the time when they're traumatized, like, or, going through something. So, yeah.
Yeah, she was also a mother of 2 kids who were in captivity, too.
Right,
she wanted to make sure.
But Ella was not.
Ella was not.
They did not have that inconvenience of presenting Joan Cusack with grandchildren, which would have been, by the way, amazing.
Would have been amazing.
That would have been even worse for Mackenzie. Mackenzie would not have liked that.
So after she done disappeared, there were missed opportunities to find Jaycee. Apparently, parole officers had visited the Garrido's house, but they never checked the backyard.
Right.
And so the state of California agreed to pay Jaycee's family $20 million instead of going to avoid a lawsuit.
That's chill.
Yeah, it reminds me of that SVU episode. It's like, sorry you were victimized with child porn, but here's $4 million to everybody you sue. Right?
Exactly.
I don't think that takes the sting out of it, Chase, but certainly when you look back over years and years, 18 years, there were so many opportunities that they really had to bring this girl home.
Yeah, and she wasn't just confined to the shed, right? Like, they had her come and do, like, work for them on the computer and stuff.
Yeah, she worked. He owned a print shop. And she came in
she was like their secretary.
She worked as a graphic artist.
Like, so she was really living that life.
She also did these blue landscapes with a crayon. She just kept going back and forth.
Oh, God.
No, I can't actually back that up.
Yeah, you can't.
But you can't.
Now, I don't think
it didn't happen.
It's true. That's true. Now, I don't think I would have kidnapped Rebecca to make her my wife, but I definitely could see her making me live in a shed in the backyard.
Well, that's only because you didn't have to.
Well, that is going to do it for us. We want to thank our guest, Chase Williamson. Chase, where can our listeners follow you online?
Thank you for having me. You can follow me. My handle is Chillamson, ChillamSon on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot.
And Rebecca Lavoie, what's your Twitter handle?
It is @RebLavoie, and you can also listen to our other podcast, Crime Writers On, and follow us there @Crime Writers On.
And you can track me on Twitter @Kevin P. Flynn. You can also tweet to us at Law & Order Pod, or follow us on Instagram @ These Are Their Stories Podcast. Our newsreader was Cy Frater. Our theme music was composed and performed by Uncanny Valleys. Content assistance from Travis Roy. Lily Flynn slings the swag. To get ad-free episodes of These Are Their Stories a week early, sign up for Stitcher Premium. Get your first month free at StitcherPremium.com/crime. All clips in this podcast were used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act Fair Use Exemption for criticism and commentary. Special thanks to the elite squad of the Law & Order Wiki community for preserving the evidence. If you want to know what episodes we're talking about in our upcoming shows, go to lawandorderpodcast.com, sign up for our newsletter, and a chance to be our next Law & Order Marathon winner. These Are Their Stories was recorded in the Yoga Loft above the bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi.
That's the word. You almost got through the whole thing. I was so impressed.
In Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, and it is a production of Partners in Crime Media.
Partners in Crime Media.